Jim and myself, we are educators ourselves. So for the past 12 years, we have actually been in adult education. We have a corporate training company that really does like workshops, bespoke training for companies, for adults. And one of the things that we've always believed in is that technology should help to make things better. In that case, make learning stickier. So
Right.
in part of the thing that we actually provided all the time was that we always incorporated things like mobile apps, e-learning apps that really help to complement the training so that it can be used effectively after the training as well. So then one of the things in the more recent years, one of the things we realized that one of the biggest problems is that it's actually very hard to kind of scale the facilitator, like in that case, the educator themselves, so ourselves, because that's something that is very limited. You only have so many hours in the day, but then you have so many things to do apart from just teaching per se. You actually have to do a lot of different tasks, which are essential, but yet it's time consuming. So that's where we looked at how we can use AI to automate that process and to kind of simulate that personalized interaction that may not be possible all the time with just having the physical person.
Exactly.
That's how Noodle Factory was born. So we actually created it to solve our own challenge, to try to scale ourselves. We realized there wasn't really a out of the box solution. So we started looking at things like using external chatbot technologies, trying to use that to simulate what we would say to the student. But we found that one of the biggest problems is that it wasn't built for learning. So it's more built for customer service. It has a very structured kind of approach. So that's where we needed to kind of build a kind of a similar interface like chat-based, because that gives a very personalized kind of approach. But at the same time, make it easy for educators to use it, make it easy to handle a lot of content. And that's where we developed Noodle Factory. For most of the countries, they spend actually less than 50% of the time actually teaching. A
Right.
lot of time is actually spent on a lot of other activities like administrative tasks, things like marking, communication with parents. And those are, in a way essential, but yet they take up so much of the time. So, one key takeaway is that teachers are really overworked. That's one of the main things. And they work generally very long hours compared to their peers in a similar kind of profession or salary range.
One of the design principles that we used as we were coming up with the concept was thinking of the way that a teacher-student relationship works. So a tutoring relationship, a mentoring relationship, and using that as an analogy. And obviously, much of that happens conversationally. So the ability to ask questions or to engage in dialogue. So that was kind of the early thinking of, well, this is something that we do in the physical world. How do we take that and convert that into the digital world? And so conversations or messaging, or in this case, chat, is really just a way to digitalize or empower that engagement between the student and, in this case, the content, not the teacher. The content really represents the teacher or the teacher's thinking or the teacher's expertise. So that was the initial guiding principle that we used, is let's create an environment where the student can, in a self-directed way, just have a conversation, explore the content, get better at understanding the concepts and the theories, do things like assessments and quizzes on their own, rather than having to wait for a teacher to initiate that.
Right. So I would like to say that it's more like you're designing your own kind of artificial intelligence through the chatbots.
We did have to do quite a bit of development, yes, because going back to something you said earlier, when you look at the way, so we're using natural language processing. When you look at the use cases for natural language processing, there are many in customer service. There's certainly different use cases in the legal profession and in the medical profession. So it's not uncommon to find natural language processing algorithms that have been tuned for various use cases. But EdTech and learning in particular, there wasn't a lot when we started out. There are certainly some out there now, but when we started the company in 2018, this was a pathway that wasn't well explored. And so we felt like we needed to go and do this ourselves and develop a number of these algorithms ourselves, often in partnership. But yeah, it was an area where we were trying to break some new ground.
Okay, okay. So, can you give us a rough idea about how much time does it take to, work on these bot training processes? Because we know we are to this, we are purpose is to replace the teachers' non-teaching time, right? In grading processes, in those forming the questionnaires, forming the curriculum for the semesters and all. So, with this bot training process, we are looking to replace that. So, how much time, overall time, does it take for this process?
On average, with most of the schools that we've worked with, we take probably just a few days to train the bot. And
Wow.
that's for like an entire semester of content. Because literally what they need to do is just drop in the existing content. So one of the biggest problems with like most other chatbots today that are not built for education is that you actually need to create all these like, intense like question answer pairs on what to do in every instance as somebody asks this question. So you can imagine it's very time consuming if you're going to put an entire course, try to create a lot of question answer pairs around it. But what we've done is that we use AI to automate that process. So the teacher effectively just drops in their content. It could be PowerPoint slides, it could be a textbook that is digitized. And then the AI engine will then basically read through the content and extract questions and answers and form them into pairs, and then kind of classify them into different subject areas, and then the students can immediately engage with it. So all the teachers are doing is really dropping in that content and then basically checking, curating, making some adjustments. So it really doesn't take too long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I believe it's addressing most of the challenges that are facing in respect to the personalized tutoring experience.
Yes, correct. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with, if you look at EdTech, a lot of EdTech products, let's say something very simple like e-learning, you always have to spend time to kind of repurpose existing content into that format. So it always takes actually, easily like a few months just to create that. So that's something that we've tried to avoid because we have experience with that. We've seen how painful it can be. So that's something that from the start when we developed this, we knew that it had to be easy for the educator to do it.
Okay. Okay.
So just a comment on that too. That in and of itself represents a barrier for teachers to try to innovate. And so what we've tried to do is reduce, or in some cases remove that barrier. So time is not an issue. It isn't going to take you weeks or months to take a course and get that into the platform. And also we wanted to make it easy because as Yvonne mentioned, many educators are not particularly technical by their own admission. So we wanted to make this easy. So you already have content, you have a textbook, you have course notes, you have PowerPoint slides. Take that you've already spent a lot of time on, drag that in, that becomes your source for engaging students. So it's something you already know, and the learning curve on using the platform, we wanted to make that very, very flat so the educator could get on the platform and use it very quickly.
Exactly. So I can say subjects like the history, geography, those are like pretty much executable through these chatbots, right?
Yeah, any courses that work best are things that are very concept heavy, very theory heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah, so by and large, all courses or all content, all subjects have a certain amount of that. But yes, geography, history, economics, finance, most general business topics. You go through the list, they all have, to a greater or lesser degree, lots and lots of concepts that you need to understand and be conversant in. And so that's where the tutoring can really help, is to extend the classroom experience or extend the learning experience. So we're not necessarily replacing the classroom experience. We're trying to make that more effective, and for the teachers, make that more productive.
Oh, okay. So, just a quick follow up on that. You're saying it's not replacing the classroom experience there. We are just enhancing the classroom experience. I'd like to have a quick share from your side. Have you seen any experiences, any instances where the schools have said that how it has exactly benefited their overall teaching experience?
Yeah.
Maybe Yvonne can take that one. She's got a very good example of that.
Yeah. So actually, one of the things that we focus on is, I think one thing is our platform is actually educator focused. So it's really meant to help teachers. Obviously, the end mode is delivery to the students. But where you see a lot of times, a lot of edtech platforms are actually student focused without regard for the teachers and how hard it is to get them set up and all that. So we are, and at the same time, we don't use AI to kind of replace teachers. It's really meant to augment them, take away tasks that are actually very time consuming. So they have time for more value added activities. So one very good example is that one of the schools that we work with here in Singapore, initially they said that they had a really bad pain point, which is that they have very big class sizes and they are spending a lot of times, kind of working with the students on formative assessments to prepare them for the final exams. And they have to actually mark all these papers, which are a lot of times open-ended questions, and then give feedback and that. So they are spending weekends and nights doing that. So once the teachers started using the platform, and I think they've only used it for 3 months, one of the teachers sent me a text during the weekend to tell me that, hey, guess what? I'm at the movies, which is something that I haven't been able to do for a long time. So, the platform has really helped in that sense.
Yeah, so it's like really helping them to maintain that work-life balance over there.
Yes, which is not, if you look at the report, that is a big problem. And a lot of teachers leave. Teachers are actually most of them are genuinely passionate about what they do. They do it because they want to make a difference in young people's lives. But a lot of them also leave because a lot of times they feel burnt out. And that's because of all these additional tasks that they need to do.
Right, right. And I see this work-life balance, coming to that work-life balance concept. I see that many of the teachers in Asia, especially Singapore, that according to the report, the Singaporean teachers are much more, spending much more time in the OT, in the classes, in comparison to the average global. So is it because of something in the Singaporean education system, or is it because of the way we are, the way we Asians are? Is it because of that? Normally,
Yeah.
they call the hardworking.
Yeah, I think the longest hours is actually Japan, and I think it's like significantly more. Singapore, I think, is ranked as like seventh longest working hours in the world. And yeah, I think it's also because there's a lot of focus on, like, exams, final exams, preparing for things like, let's say in Singapore, like PSLE, and then the O levels, A levels. So that's where, I think there's a lot of emphasis on getting them ready for the exams, which includes things like having them do, practice exams, and all that is taking a big toll on teachers.
Right, right. And same here in India. I'll tell you, in India as well, with the pandemic, with a lot of Zoom classes, Microsoft Team classes, Google Meet classes going on, even here itself, the issues are same. Work hours are increasing, not decreasing, increasing here. So I would like to know from Noodle Factory in this pandemic period, 1920, have you come up with any special initiative to make help them with this extra workload that has come up on them? Any special initiative from Noodle Factory for that?
So we have had some initiatives around this. So kind of in the heart of the pandemic, or the early parts of the pandemic last year, in 2020, we did an outreach to teachers, really to try to help them understand how to be more effective in a virtual environment. And that wasn't necessarily about our platform. It was more, you're on Zoom, you're on Teams, you're on Google Classroom. For a lot of teachers, that was new. And so, this was an arena that we've been working in a long time. So we just tried to package that up and say, here's some best practices on how to make that experience more effective for you and the student. But then fast forward to today, just in September. Now we're in October, but just last month in September, we did an outreach to teachers for Teachers Month here in Singapore, where we said, let us show you how to save hundreds of hours per year and reduce your stress levels by using the platform. So it was a little bit, of a marketing campaign, I have to admit, but it was a genuine outreach to teachers for Teachers Month, to give them free access to the platform and give them some experience with the platform. really with the intention of showing them how to quickly get some productivity gains, similar to the educator that Yvonne was mentioning. Get your nights and weekends back.
Right.
If you're working 50 hours a week now, let's get some of that back so that you can either invest that back into teaching, or as you said, just bring your work-life balance into balance. It may be out of balance today because of the pandemic.
Exactly.
So let's get you some time back personally so that you can recharge and rest and focus on yourself and your family.
Right, right, right. And it doesn't matter what you call your initiative, a marketing initiative or an outreach initiative, as long as the intentions are pure, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're a startup and we're in business to grow, and we want to be successful. But part of the motivation is to have an impact on teachers, a positive impact on what they do, how they do it, and then ultimately to see that transfer into better learning outcomes.
I think it also stems from the education system. And if you see recently, like even in Singapore, they are taking some, moves about that, because both to protect the student mental health as well as the educator. For example, they are, looking at doing away with things like the PSLE, as well as, kind of having less emphasis on just exams and what's the grade. So I think that part already kind of creates that problem, that the previous emphasis a lot on the final exams, big exams. Apart from that, I think, yeah, in places like Europe, you'll see that there's always a quite long mandated vacations that they have. That's not necessarily the case here, even though teachers here technically have the school holidays off, but the reality is, I think half of it is expected to, they are expected to return to the school, prepare for meetings, as well as to prepare for the next term as well.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And the reason I asked this question is because there have been a recent crackdown in China on the edtech industries, edtech giants and all. And I see the conditions here are not that conducive, not proving to be that conducive for the edtech platform, the education technology platform. So considering that, are there any regulation policies or restructuring that you look out to, so that a platform like Noodle Factory can actually partner with the governments and make it more technologically conducive the way it is in Europe, make it more technology conducive for the curriculum building or the overall national exam conductions and all. So is there any policy structures, anything that you are expecting, or anything you can suggest to the authorities?
So for one of the things that, for our platform, we try to be as agnostic as possible. So for example, we don't provide content, we just provide the platform that helps, basically the teachers be more effective. We also plug into any existing environment. So it doesn't matter if they're using an existing learning management system, any existing platforms, we can easily plug in. We're really a tool to help productivity. From a policy standpoint, we can see that even when we work with the schools here, actually anywhere, privacy is a big thing, like student privacy, student data. So that's something that we do work with. So where our platform really focuses on is really just to help the teachers with the pedagogy part of it and instruction.
Part of the thing that we need to think about because of that is flexibility. So being able to be adaptive, providing enough flexibility in the feature set or the deployment of the platform to align to the local policies and conditions, requirements. So for example, here in Singapore, you've got just a certain approach to education that's different from, say, a country like Finland, two countries that are always at the top of the international lists in terms of learning outcomes, but different approaches to education. We need to be able to align to both of those different approaches.
Exactly.
And so that's both a challenge from a development perspective, but it's an opportunity for us to have that sort of flexibility so that when we go into a local scenario, we don't have to do a lot of customization. The development of the platform is such that it's adaptable to many different types of learning environments or pedagogies that might be in use in that particular location, or even schools within a location. So I think, and this is, I think where you were going with this is adaptability.
Right.
So we started this company and this initiative pre-pandemic. And what's interesting is, there has been, you're right, a lot of increased focus on ed tech, probably thanks to the pandemic, a
Right.
realization that with the move to more online learning because of the pandemic, a lot of education was out of position, technologically speaking. So there's been a catch up that's been going on. However, and this is debatable, but when we get back to more normal health and safety conditions, I don't think we're going to go completely back to the way we used to do things. It's probably going to be more of a hybrid, more of a blend. So let's take the best of the old situation, which was primarily classroom based, with some of the good things that we've discovered through the pandemic. Here's maybe a silver lining to the pandemic about how online can be used to augment the experience. And I would maybe selfishly include us in that, being able to extend both the physical classroom experience and the online classroom experience, or to bridge those two things with something like Noodle Factory. So I think that's a very long way of saying, I think in 2022 and beyond, we'll probably be in a situation where technologies like ours will be seen as complementary to many different ways of educating.
Right, right. So in a way, we can say that it will actually help to decrease that work life, improve the work life balance of teachers in the future as well.
And yes, absolutely. And I think also just improve the learning outcomes for students, regardless of whether we're talking about in-person classes or online classes. For us, it really doesn't matter. We're born digital. We've always been digital. So for us, the pandemic, I think, just highlighted what we could do, and it certainly has helped to accelerate the interest level in what we do. But it was always a path that we were on in terms of extending that classroom experience and using digital capabilities to further learning outcomes.
We have, I think, quite a lot of things planned in our roadmap. I think one of the things is to improve the way that we can capture the analytics that make it even more useful for the teachers. For example, things like sentiment analysis, so we can see how students are interacting and to highlight where teachers need to be concerned or to where they need to give different attention to the students. Also, I mentioned earlier about things like integrations. So we're rolling out different APIs so that it can be easily integrated into all sorts of different platforms. Because schools might be using Google Classroom, Zoom, they have different learning management systems, so the ease of that. From a business perspective, we are actively expanding as well. Right now, most of our early clients are from Singapore, but we've recently also expanded into Australia, and we're actively expanding into the US and UK as well.
Oh, okay. Great, great, great. Any plans to venture into China, India, and Pakistan, all those countries, the Middle East countries?
Right now, the NLP engine that we work with works best with English because of the way it captures the information and is able to kind of understand the meaning, extract the meaning from that. We had to build that based out of like a data set, so with the AI, we need the data set. So we do have other languages in the roadmap, but that's something that because English has a large data set, but some of the other languages, especially in the neighboring countries, do not have a lot of big data set to work with. So that's something that we're exploring potentially through partnerships as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I believe through partnerships that would be a bigger, faster rollout.
Yes, correct.
Most importantly, yeah, I believe you're right, Yvonne. The way you said the teaching the children in their regional language would be a more adaptive and more effective way, and that certainly requires a more bigger rollout and a bigger partnership, especially in a country like India, where we have more than 50 languages. Right. Okay. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, Yvonne, for spending time with us, telling all this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Dr. Jim. I hope we surpass this pandemic safely, carefully, and healthily. And I believe if with God's wish, we could meet someday in Singapore and have a personal interaction.
Yes, that would be good.
Yeah. So
That would be fantastic.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Dr. Jim.
maybe I'll leave you with one thing. Just to, since it's a Friday, I'll leave you with one thing that we talk about in the office often, and that's sort of a tagline that we use. You know, we genuinely believe that teachers have always been heroes. They've always been our heroes.
Right.
But what we're trying to do is really make them superheroes or superhuman, maybe, with the technology that we've created, and to give them these superpowers, so to speak. And that, you know, that might sound like a little bit of a cheesy aspiration, but we really think through the, you know, the power of technology, the power of ed tech, we can give these teachers the tools that maybe a decade ago they only dreamed about. We want to make that a reality for them today.
Right, exactly. And let me tell you, teaching is like one of the most noble job in the world. And in here in India, we have a saying, Mata, Pita, Guru, Devo. It's like mother, father, teacher, and God.
Mm.
So teacher comes even before the God. And you are talking about, you know, empowering the teacher themselves, you know, empowering someone higher than the God here. So
Right.
that's really a noble initiative that you have taken here with Noodle Factory. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll meet soon.
Yes.
Thank you,
hope
Joel.
so. Bye.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye bye.